7 secret fears men over 50 feel when they really like you. Whether you're a man or a woman, I suspect you'll be able to appreciate this conversation. And while I typically work with women, I also do occasionally work with men. And one of the first questions I ask someone when I'm evaluating them as a client or working with them as a client is, what is your greatest fears or fear when you enter into a relationship? Let me repeat that. What's your greatest fear or fears when entering into a relationship? See, fears are a block to love. Now, we have to recognize that, this is, it's interesting because this might be a great first date question to ask someone, but I know a lot of people will tell you, never go that deep, never go that vulnerable. But I think when we reverse engineer the dating process, you see, the dating process is oftentimes hyper-focused on romance. It's hyper-focused on having a good time. And I wonder, what if we reversed engineer? What if we work backwards? And we start with the challenging things in the very beginning, because if two people are attracted to each other enough, they might be willing to explore this. Now, a man might fear, okay, I'm going to give you 7 fears. They might fear one of them. They might fear all of them. This might show up at a first date, or it might show up later in the dating process. So what is dating? See, again, we oftentimes hyper-focus on romance and having a good time for a variety of different reasons, instead of the real understanding the purpose of what is dating. Dating is a vetting process. Dating is a fact-finding mission to determine if two people should explore a relationship together. Now, I say should explore a relationship together, but from my world, I guess where I struggle sometimes as a coach is I'm here to encourage a long-term mating strategy, And sadly, most human beings have a short-term mating strategy. And I think if you look back in history, up until about 100 or maybe 60 plus years ago, most people dated with the purpose of getting married. There was an intentionality with the dating process, and that has certainly shifted in the last 60 years. And that's because predominantly hooking up, situationships, part-time relationships, and casual relationships make up the majority of circumstances in the dating marketplace today. Did you hear that? Hooking up, situationships, part-time relationships. Did I mention friends with benefits? I forgot to include that. Friends with benefits, part-time relationships, and casual relationships that make up the majority of relationships today. See, if you're like me, you want a serious relationship. You're looking for something beyond the surface. You want a potential life partner. And if you're approaching it from this premise, then it's really important to focus on compatibility as well as that attraction piece. See, attraction gets us in the door. There's no doubt about it. But let me ask you something. If you've been out in the dating marketplace for a while and you've had, let's just say, 5 to 10 relationships that lasted 3 months or longer, or let me say experiences, okay? We won't call them relationships, but if you had experiences that lasted 3 months or longer, the average person's had somewhere between 5 and 10 of those. And if you look back to the root, attraction God, I'm spitting. Attraction is what got you in the door. But shared values, shared vision, lifestyle compatibility, and most importantly, emotional capacity and emotional maturity is what kept relationships together, or what keeps relationships together. And for them actually to thrive, because there's a lot of people in a serious relationship. There are a lot of people that are married, but they're not necessarily happy. So in a moment, I'm going to share with you these 7 things. But before I do, I want to invite everyone to explore something. And that is the term self-awareness, and why this is so critically important in this conversation. Because when you're looking at a man or woman's fears, it's important to be introspective and look internally. at maybe your own fears. Being self-aware is like being the actor on stage, the director that's kind of directing the play, if you will, being the audience member witnessing everything, and the other actors in the play are just simply a mirror of yourself. Believe it or not, it's a reflection of yourself. When you can get to this kind of understanding, this is my interpretation of self-awareness. Self-awareness is recognizing one's fears and insecurities and negative patterns and limiting beliefs and how our actions affect other people. And our capacity to shift to love provides someone a level of contentment or joy in their life. And so I really want you to sit with what I just said and invite yourself to look at your greatest fears when entering in a relationship. Because whether you like it or not, whether you're a man or woman, we all experience some level of fear. You know, it's interesting. Folks, I used to be a man who chased sex. I'm going to raise my hand. I was the man before I got married, and after my divorce, I chased sex. In other words, I chased physical attraction for the purpose of sex. And when I chase sex, by the way, I know you ladies love the idea. Men love the hunt. Men love the chase. Men are supposed to be pursuers. Men are the leaders of the relationship. Ask yourself, when you're meeting a total stranger, what is their motivation? Like, do you really honestly believe when you meet a stranger, you're so altruistic and motivated by, again, motivated by an altruistic space? And I was a very broken man after my divorce. And you have to be careful for the men who chase sex, because it can be so enticing, because they can flatter you and be charming in such a way. But that doesn't mean that they have the capacity to be in a relationship with you. That doesn't even mean that they want a full-term commitment just because they like you. But when a man isn't chasing sex, and when he isn't broken seeking a therapist, oh, wait, did you hear that? He isn't broken seeking a therapist. Do you realize that I would venture to say 1/3 of people out in the dating marketplace, the people that they're communicating with are oftentimes too broke. And when I say broken, we're all human beings with flaws. So let me be clear about that. But honestly, dating today has become a replacement for therapy. Yep. Remember I said it's a vetting process and a fact finding, but you know what it really is? The purpose these days for a lot of people, it's therapy. In other words, they're hurting on the inside. They lack that self-love I talk about in my book called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help with Spiritual Work. There's a link below to get a copy of my book. And I'm guilty of this. But, I'm guilty of talking to someone because I'm lonely, connecting with someone just because it's nice to connect with another human being. And just remember, I believe most human beings are good people. Down in their core, they're good people. We are flawed. There's no doubt about it. We are flawed because that's what being human is all about. But I think most people are good people. So in a moment, I'm going to talk about these 7 things, but I want to bring to your attention men who are only seeking a part-time relationship. They might not exhibit these fears. These men have a short-term mating strategy, and men with a broken heart oftentimes are very self-protective against these fears. I need to repeat this. There are plenty of men only seeking a part-time relationship, and these fears might not apply because these men have a short-term mating strategy, and men with a broken heart often self-protect against these fears. This is why when I created my private coaching, it's all about helping people, men and women alike, to become discerning, to ask those radically honest questions based on your personality. So if you need support, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Now, here's the thing about men. we men are expected to be confident and stoic. And the rhetoric out there is so based on Prince Charming that we must be perfect in the dating realm. But these fears I'm about to share with you aren't excuses. They're simply here to point out what men go through because men are human. Now, what's interesting, when I wrote down these 7 things, I actually typed into Chat GPT this very same post. Or I typed in, what are men's greatest fears when they really like you? And it was so fascinating because almost everything I pointed out here showed up, except for one. So I thought that was kind of fun. So if you're curious, just type that into Chat GPT and you can get the Cliff Note version. Actually, Chat GPT came up with 10 or 11 things. These are just 7 that I'm sharing today. So the first one, I'm not good enough. That's, I think, a core wound for every human being on the planet is I'm not good enough. Hey, it's 11:11. I think it's the number one emotional health wound, and dating and relationships can trigger this like nobody's business. Many of you watched a recent video where I connected with a woman online. We spoke on the phone for 6 days, quite a bit, and then we met for a first date. And I got to tell you, we were clicking on, we were checking each other's boxes. It was so wonderful. It was kind of fun. We were actually vibing very well together. By the way, there happened to be a little bit of distance. It was a 4-hour drive. And I would say my fear going into it was that she wasn't going to be attracted to me. And I don't, well, and by the way, I had a fear that whether or not I would be attracted to her. So let me be clear. I think, actually, let me just say this. My fear was more I wouldn't be attracted to her, but I had a tiny fear that she wouldn't be attracted to me because you know, until you meet someone you don't know. And sadly, at the end of our date, if you will, she basically was very forthright and said she didn't have chemistry for me. Now, chemistry is this elusive thing. It's an unpredictable thing. It's a fickle thing. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Traction is different than chemistry. I think chemistry is a biological connection. Well, actually, no, I should retract that. I think chemistry is oftentimes confused for something known as the imago or love attachment style. If you're not familiar with this book, Getting the Love You Want by Harbel Hendricks or Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin, sometimes chemistry is an insecure or unhealthy connection or to another human being, or the rejection of that unhealthy connection to another human being. But why I'm sharing this story is after she said she didn't have chemistry with me, it was like, and by the way, I don't fault her for it. She was being honest. I appreciate the vulnerability, the authenticity, the transparency. But there was a dagger to my ego, and it triggers my not good enough wounds. And let me tell you something. This has happened before, and I've rejected women before too. And then that rejection, we can feel not good enough. And I was bullied in school, and my mom habitually told me I'm not good enough. So this is core stuff that came up for me in this experience. And I would be lying if I didn't say, if I go on another date, that wound doesn't exist. That fear doesn't exist. And I know many of you ladies and gentlemen out there who are watching this can relate to this core wound. And as I said earlier, we men are supposed to be confident and stoic and so evolved that we're supposed to be Prince Charming. We're supposed to climb to the highest room of the tallest tower. Men are scared too. It's not an excuse. It's just a reality. Number 2, competition. There's this now with the advent of dating apps, there's this competitiveness that's happened in the dating realm, whether you're a man or a woman. And you might like someone, but you might be a guy might be afraid that you might like another guy. Or, by the way, if you're a woman who likes a guy, you might be afraid that they like someone else. I think it's natural because of the what's the word I'm looking for? The overwhelming, connectivity through online dating, that competition can actually be a fear that can come up for people. And by the way, for some men, competition is a game. Ladies, be careful of this, because for some men, it might be that they want to get in your pants. They'll love bomb the heck of you because they want to know that they beat out the other guy, and they'll dump and dismiss you as soon as they've had a conquest. So this, for some men, competition fuels unhealthy behavior. And for other men, it can make them feel less than, coming back to that I'm not good enough. Now, one of the core fears almost all men feel, and I felt this happens when I like someone, this fear pops up, and that's the fear of commitment, the loss of freedom. The loss of freedom. And if you're familiar with love attachment style, avoidance fear enmeshment. So they fear commitment, they fear loss of freedom, but avoidance in particular feel overwhelmed if there's enmeshment, too much enmeshment. And this is one of the reasons why they keep space from an emotional perspective. Let's face it, when you live on your own, you are free to do whatever you want. Life is to some degree simpler because you get to make your own choices. But the minute you engage in relationship with someone, you're now responsible for someone else's feelings. And it can be a bit problematic in the sense that now the minute you engage with someone, you have to be responsible for someone else's feelings. And that can feel overwhelming to a lot of people. And also there's a fear that someone, there's the fear of missing out that comes with the fear of commitment. There, meaning there could be someone even better. I mean, these are all, again, these aren't excuses, but these are the experiences that can happen for a lot of men and women alike. Number 4. Not being good enough in bed. As men age, this title is Men Over 50. As we age, the equipment just doesn't work the way it does. It sucks. I'm just going to share with you. I'm a tail end baby boomer Gen Xer, and it sucks that I have to use a blue pill, and it doesn't always work. And God forbid I have a little alcohol, it doesn't work at all. And there's this also fear of not being good in bed, because these days the average person's had multiple sexual partners. And I've even talked in women's groups. I spoke to a woman who was married, but she mentioned that there was a different man in her life that was a better lover than her husband. And boy, did that was a dagger to my heart. Because we men want to feel like we're the best. And ladies, you want to feel the same way. These fears aren't just singular to men. These are fears for men and women alike. And so here's the problem with fears. We can keep them hidden, or we can open them up. And I believe when we have conversations like this, when we have conversations with people, as I said in the beginning of this broadcast, we actually shine a light to the shadow, and these fears don't feel so overwhelming. Number 5, rejection. I mean, kind of everything I've been talking about is the fear of rejection, the fear of not being wanted. But that's, some people just immediately go into the process fearing rejection. For some people, having that fear is a self-protection mechanism. If I already fear rejection, I can't get hurt. Some people detach by having a fear of rejection so they don't get hurt. It's a block to love, as I shared before. Number 6, the fear of screwing up. And I have this fear. I was in a relationship with a woman a decade and a half ago, and I totally screwed up Valentine's Day. She had something planned and I did zilch. And part of it was because I was stressed out about something that was happening in my life that day. And I just blew it. I in my heart of hearts, I wanted to do a good job, but I blew it. And she was visibly disappointed because she had planned something. And I recognize that there's this core wound. I'm not good enough. I screw up. I screw up. There are things I'm just not good at in life. There's just things I'm not good at in life. I'm not a great social planner. It's just not my strength. I have so many radical strengths in my life, but I have a fear of screwing up. It just, and so men, we fear disappointing you. And by the way, ladies, you feel this fear as well. This isn't singular to men, the fear of disappointing someone. And number 7, and I think this is the hardest fear for most men, just at a core level, is being perceived as weak. Being perceived as weak. I've shared publicly a lot of my fears, my insecurities. I've shared with many of you, I struggle with overseas travel. I struggle with it. I struggle when I'm in a new environment because men are supposed to be strong and we're supposed to be confident. We're supposed to be protectors. These scripts play in my head and it fucks with me because I recognize I get afraid. I get afraid. I just do. I'm working on overcoming it like anything. People go into training to become able to fight. You learn, techniques, and I'm using fighting as the example, but it's something that some people are naturally good at and some people need training like anything in life. And I don't do it enough and I fear, it's just a weakness that I have within myself. And I fear being perceived as weak. And I know a lot of men have this core wound of feeling perceived as weak because there's just so much garbage and so much rhetoric that are saying you're not a real man if you're not strong. Do you realize these scripts screw with us, whether you're a man or a woman? These scripts screw with us. And it's interesting. I've been rejected by women for sharing that. But you know what? It's who I am. Why do I have to hide from all of these fears? I think when we embrace these fears, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Before it was 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 22, 22. Anyway, when we embrace these fears, when we shine a light on it, that's love. That's love at its core. And so I'm here to say that, look, we men aren't perfect. You women aren't perfect. But you know what? I think we all desire feeling a real connection. So the minute we like someone, all of a sudden, all of our fears begin to bubble up and surface. Because when you don't like someone, they're not, they still might be there, but they get triggered. The dating and relationship process triggers this stuff like nobody's business. And so just recognize that these exist. And you know what's gonna shine a light on this? If we have more richer conversations early in the process, instead of allowing chemistry to be the driver of the bus. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. Post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. As always, if you find my value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos as well. Also, if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to get all the books I recommend listed below, and also to follow me on social media. Okay?